One thing that CSS3 also gives us is the exclusion. So we can say match all these elements and then exclude these elements. So here I've matched all the divs and I've excluded any div that has a class with exclude me. So what it does is it first matches everything on the left, going from right to left, and then it's actually no, it doesn't. It first matches the div, then it says not, and then it checks to see if there's a parent. So here it says not exclude me, and I used a class. I could have used, an attribute selector, something that doesn't have a title, anything that doesn't have a title. I don't know why you would want to do that. Or not nth of type 3. So in this case, it would match every single div except for the third one. Why not? You might not want to match the third one. So this is actually very useful and very powerful, but there's a few things to note about this. What exactly can go in here? So what can go in here is what they call a simple selector. Now, nth of type 3 might be new to you, so it might not seem that simple, but it is simple in that it's not a parent, child, or ancestor descendant relationship. I was going to say dependent. I'm like, no, it's not dependent. So you can put any simple selector, which means no relational selectors. But you can put, IDs if you want to. You could put classes. You can put attribute selectors. You could put structural selectors. You could put UI selectors. Those are all the things we've covered already today, right? You just can't put the ul tilde div or whatever. That's not the child of ul. Nope, that you can't do that. Thing to note is that the not does not add any value to specificity, but this does. So this is actually very specific. It's a 1 dash, I was going to do this section next, but can people hand these out? So this is specificity, or specificity, and it's a specificity, wow, I have a tail and it's following me along and it feels really weird. F4. I hope I brought enough. Here. Oh. And here more for the, I can't actually, my butt won't let me go all the way to the end. Can you bring this to those people? Thank you. Oh, I probably should have kept one. Are there any extras by any chance? Or just enough? Okay. Thanks. Oil tanker? Yes. I'm not at all political. So, thanks. Thank you. Okay, so what do we have here? I'm not going to go into everything yet, but I will point out what's at the bottom. So the last two lines in tiny, tiny print says the star plus greater than tilde has no value in terms of the specificity. And neither does the word not. That's the last line. The negation selector itself has no value, but the argument based or passed increases the specificity. So whatever you put in here actually increases the specificity. I'll go over specificity in the next section in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. So let's exclude things. So it says, this says li not first child. So everything is highlighted red and bold, except for the first one. I could have done last child, and everything except for the 13th. I could have done nth child, 3, so everything except for the third, 3n, anything except for divisible by 3, with an offset of 1, right? I'm just going to confirm that 1 plus 3n does not work. See how I remember when I said you had to put it first, the n first? So that's omitting stuff. And then I have like links. So A. So none of my links are going to be the third child because every single link is the first child of its parent, right? So that wouldn't match anything. If I did 1, it would match all of the links, right? I could have done first child. But I can also do in here not href, which would be really stupid. If I spell this wrong, you see, it doesn't match anything. So you don't want to say not href because obviously an A is going to have an href. But this could help you figure out where your links are broken on the page. Like, do I have a link that doesn't have an href? Because then my page is not fully accessible. Or I should be adding roles, ARIA roles to them. If I'm telling them to do something else. So, but then I can also say starts with. So this is a local one, and that's the only one matched. Does that make sense? If you want to play with it 30 seconds, feel free, but I'm going to move on. We have the empty pseudo class, which I'm still trying to find a purpose for. This actually, do you guys know what CodePen is? Okay. So this actually caused an issue. I just wanted to do this by example. So CodePen, when Chris Coyer was doing it, he put empty for inside, like p empty, like don't show it because sometimes people cut and paste and they have empty cells and whatever. And what happened is it went up. And so every single empty div, it was actually div empty. Every empty div, like all the ones that were just holding icons, were display none. And he's like, ah. So it's powerful, and it probably doesn't do what you want it to do, but it's basically empty divs or empty p's or empty whatever, which means that they either don't have a text node at all, like completely empty, or they have just a comment. This is supposed to match that. That's all it matches, empty. So not empty is actually more powerful than empty. Or you could do empty. You could do div colon empty background repeat no repeat because usually you're doing a styling of something, like you're putting a background image on empty divs, right? We have other pseudo classes. We have language and target and link and visited, hover, active, and focus. So you guys are all familiar with these down below, right? So interesting thing to note about link and visited is that for security reasons, since I guess it was Safari 5, the link and visited are less well supported because what you could do is you could actually use JavaScript to see what the features the links had to see if a user had gone to Bank of America and said, okay, I know where you bank, I know what you do, blah, 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 blah. So that was kind of dangerous. So there's fewer features that are now supported on these two. But these are still fully supported. Language matches anything that has the lang attribute set. I've never used it, but target is kind of interesting. Target is when you have an anchor in the page. So like a div with an ID and you say go to that section of the page, you can style it when that section is active. So I'm going to show you by example, and this example is Chris Coyer's. But you see how there's no target right here? It says target.html and there's no hash. And these three are gray. And when I click on one, it's, oh, you totally can't look up there and see that it's gray, but people who are, I guess, are recording my computer can see that. Can you guys see it locally, that it's gray? Let's do this. Let's make it red. There, now you can see. That's pretty. That's just why I am not a designer. Okay, so this is white, and these two are no longer white because this is the target. How do I know it's the target? One, because it's white and it says section target. An A that is the immediate child, the direct child, not a nested child, of the section that is target. And as you can see here, it says tab 1. So tab 1 is currently the target. of the page. And so here are the styles. Section that is not, any A that is the direct child of a section that is not currently the target, make the background color red. Any div that is the direct child of a section that is not the target, give it a z-index of -2. If it is the target, give it a z-index of -1. And if the link is the target, make it background color white. So as I click through these, the z-index changes. There's no JavaScript. The only thing that is changing is this right here. And that's the power of target. So you guys have probably all created little hidden invisible divs. You can actually do that without JavaScript. Okay. Next we have root. And root is the root of the page. It's your HTML element if you are coding HTML, but it might be some other element if you're coding XML or SVG. So it selects the root, and what is it powerful for? Why not use HTML? It's going to become, well, one, because older browsers don't use it, so you can use hacks based on root, but that adds the specificity. What was I going to say? Oh, so why is it important? Because we have rem units, which I believe are either, which stands for root M or relative M, root M. So what you can do now, rem units is fairly well supported, and we're going to talk about it later today. You basically declare the font size on the root, and then every time you declare a font size thereafter, instead of saying 12 pixels or 1M, whatever, you say 1 rem, which means whatever the root element size is. And that's really powerful. I was going to talk about it later, but I'll talk about it now. So, like when you nest M units and you have like 0.9 and you've declared it on 12 things, and then you're nesting and it's get 0.9, 0.9, 0.9, 0.9, and all of a sudden you have like 4 pixel font size text and you can't read it. This takes care of that. Rem unit takes care of that. And you want to declare your original font size on the root. So in this document, you'll see that the font size is increased. They're pretty standard, right? Because if I were to actually change, I hope I used rem units on this thing. That's the HTML. I would have to find root, so hold on a second. I'm looking for inherited. I did not put rem on this page. Okay, never mind. So I can't show you that. I should have, but I didn't. Okay, and I thought I had. So you want to declare the font size on your root, and that way, whenever you refer to the rem unit, it's referring to that. And so when you want to change the font size for the page, you just change the original font size in the root, and that will change your whole page. Another reason that root is really important is future. We're going to, in CSS, there's no such thing as CSS4, but there are some modules that are not in CSS3. They're the next upcoming stuff, and so it's the next level, and who knows what they're going to call it. But there are going to be variables. We're going to be able to define variables like we do in Sass and Compass and Less. And you will define the variables on the root element. And then I've used root. Here, this whole thing is gray because I made the root background gray because the head and the body are both showing, right? So. Okay, then we have pseudo elements. We have first line, first letter, selection, which is actually not in the specifications, before and after. The first line and first letter have been around since forever. Before and after are supported in IE8 and since. And selection is actually interesting because it's supported everywhere, and that's an example of it actually. except for it never made it into the specifications because it was still not defined and they didn't want to hold up the specification, so they pulled it from the specification so that they could prove all the rest of the stuff. They didn't want it to hold up anymore. So that's that's an example of it. Selection right there. I've selected that word, and you see how it's red. And this is red. And previously in my document, when I selected stuff, it was blue. That is because I've styled the selection. So that is what selection is, but I'll get to that slide in a minute. So notice that these have 2 dots in front of them. The double colon notation indicates that it is a pseudo element and not a pseudo class. However, in practice, you will be using 1 because Microsoft. That's my answer to everything, because Microsoft. Why does my life suck today? I actually tweeted that the other day. I was debugging, supposed to be debugging in IE7 something, and it took me like an hour to get IE7 up because Microsoft. So we're going to be using single colon notation because Microsoft. Okay, so here we have, I'm actually using double colon notation for this example so that you get used to what the differences between a pseudo class and a pseudo element are. And this browser supports it, but in production you will be using one. So here it says P first of type first letter. Anyone know why I did this? Why would I do first of type? Because if I didn't, that's ugly. I'm not a graphic designer and I know that that's ugly, especially like if you have less text. So if you're ever going to use first letter, which I've never used, that's not true. I used on a site in 2003. So that's how long it's been around. But you want to do that because you don't want it to be every paragraph. And then I just styled it. I told it to be 3 M's, so it's the same height as 3 rows. That's first letter. Yay, it works. First line works the same way. It's as if when you have first letter or first line or any pseudo element, you can style it as if there was like a faux div around it. So it basically says, I don't know what this element is. We never know exactly what it is until the page renders, but when it does render, put this fake div around it and style that div. So here I could have done, position absolute. Apparently this CSS has nothing to do with this page. Oh, no. I have no clue what I'm doing. It is impacting it, but it's not working. Oh, no. Oh, well. Okay, let's cut that out of the video. Okay, so then we have selection, and that you saw what we did already, right? I just said background maroon or red, foreground white. You can style it. If you use, everyone here of HTML5 boilerplate? If you haven't looked at HTML5 boilerplate, it's a good read. I mean, that sounds really silly to say, like a template is a good read, but they actually commented out, get the long version, it explains HTML5.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Has anybody done that? Download HTML5 boilerplate, read through the comments?
So the reason that I mention HTML5 boilerplate is because they put this in there and they make it by default fuchsia. And so they can actually see which sites have implemented HTML5 boilerplate without reading the comments, because when you select their site, their stuff like becomes hot pink, which is fine on the T-Mobile website, but no other website. Okay, so we've covered everything except for before and after, which I have a full section on. But one of the things we've been saying is like, oh, this doesn't work in IE7 or IE8. But that is okay. Who here does not use a JavaScript library when they're programming, other than me? Okay, so you guys all use a library or framework of some sort. Well, there's a selectivizer. which basically goes with most libraries. And let me just open it. So here's Selectivizer, and here is their table of support with jQuery, Dojo, Prototype, YUI, DOM Assistant, which I never heard of, MooTools, and basically you see all the selectors here, and you see the libraries here, and you see what's supported. So first of type, last of type, and only of type is not supported, but jQuery has its own first, which is different. Another talk when you guys are really bored. I believe I put this in here, jQuery selectors. This is like such a beautiful presentation. But it actually goes through all the selectors that we just went through and then explains the differences with, like these are jQuery only, so you have animated, hidden, and visible, which hidden and visible are not yet in CSS. So if you get confused by jQuery and you can't remember, this is an actual list, and I don't know if there's a list anywhere other than in my deck of the selectors, because when I was doing this talk, it took me a long time to find that stuff. But then, of course, I don't use jQuery. I mean, I do, but I tend to hand code, so I'm not probably as good as you guys are with jQuery. Okay, so back to Selectivizer, back to select this. So use Selectivizer plus any JavaScript library for backwards compatibility. And then another thing to note, so you guys, who here uses jQuery? Anyone use a library other than jQuery? I mean, like, anyone not use jQuery? Okay, so I'll just use jQuery as the example, which is good, because that's the example that's up here. So you've done this, right? Everything we just learned right now, except for the pseudo elements, you can put right there. You can put nth of type 3 right there. But you don't need to pull in jQuery to do that. You can use document query selector all and put the selector right there, right in there. So let's say you're just targeting one element on your page. Don't like to do one thing. Don't include a full jQuery library just to target one element, because I will hunt you down and shoot you. Not that I have an opinion on the matter. But you can actually use this, I think IE8, but possibly 7. I think it started in IE8. So that works. The difference between this and this, the reason that there's an equal sign instead of a triple equal sign, is because this returns a live node list and this returns a static node list. Live node list means if you update your page, it will automatically be added to the list. If you update your page, it will not be added to this list. So you're thinking, why would I use this then, right? Because how many times do you add to your node list? And second of all, this is a reference to your node list. So every time you hit it then, it re-gets the node list. Whereas when you have a static node list, it's more performant. The first time you get it, it's slower, but every other time when you use it, it's more performant. So, and then there's tons of pseudo elements that we have not covered, because there's something called the shadow DOM. And I'm going to hope this works right here. Actually, I'm going to do it from a different talk. I am going to, oops. I'm going to try to make everyone dizzy today by flipping through everything. Estelle, GitHub/forms/slide 10. Why not? That was not a good one to put. I'm going to go to slide. I'm trying to get everyone to have epileptic seizures. Okay, so here, right here, we have this little thing right there, right, in the slider. If I hit this and I go and I select this, and then you see how there's an arrow right in front of this input? You're like, wait, input is an empty node. Why is there an arrow there? When you click on that, it says shadow root. And in there it says div, and in there it says div pseudo WebKit slider runnable track. And then inside that, there's another div. You can style this by using dash WebKit dash slider thumb or whatever it is. It's not all browsers yet, but it is coming. So you can style it right now in WebKit browsers. And you're like, I don't know how to find it. Like, because you don't know, you know there's a thumb, and you're kind of like, I really want to style it. Actually, you don't, because it's, at least for me, the native UI is so much prettier than what I could do, but you guys probably are more skilled than I am in that arena. But you don't know the name of it. But now actually with the debugger, and this is fairly recent in the debugger, you might need to turn a flag on, I can't remember, but you can actually see what it's called, and it says pseudo, and that's the pseudo element that you're allowed to style. So that's what you put as your selector. You put WebKit, dash WebKit dash slider dash runnable dash track, and you can style that. And here you see in the user agent, right there. See that there? Hard to read from the back, but believe me, it's there.